Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Aliah Wahida Binti Rahman. My student ID is 2018225642. First, we go to the research background. The world is currently suffering coronavirus disease 2019, which is caused by the severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2, which also known as COVID-19. The threat of COVID-19 became more evident in Malaysia when on 23rd January 2020, Singapore reported its first imported COVID-19 case from Wuhan, China, which was also the Republic's first positive case. 8 close contacts were found in Johor, Malaysia as a result of the first instance. Malaysia reported their first COVID-19 positive case on 25th January 2020, less than 48 hours after the first case reported in Singapore. This was a case that had been brought from Wuhan, China. Starting with the initial case, a total of 8 positive cases were reported within 6 days. On 18 March 2020, a movement control order was implemented to help the Ministry of Health keep the spread and deaths under control. The MCO dealt with the restriction of people's mobility into and out of a given area. Many sectors are stressed by the presence of MCO. Among them are the academic, education, manufacturing, and agriculture sectors. For the education sector, Datuk Dr. Ma Hang Soon says that the Ministry of Education was in the final stages of formulating a strategy for the implementation of online learning when schools were closed during the COVID-19 outbreak. The issue has grown in importance in light of the transferring learning activities from school to home has difficulties for shifting the learning model from face-to-face to online. However, a major problem with this kind of application is students in universities are known to face a varied range of ongoing normative stresses associated with their ongoing academic demands. As a result, dread and apprehension about having or getting COVID-19 could be a major source of stress for the student. Taking into account the actual circumstances of students during the outbreak, the study's initial goals is to identify the 3 major stresses that students face, which are academic workload, social group attachment, and fears of COVID-19 contagion. Next, we go to the problem statement. This paper attempts to show that students are more likely to experience academic stress during the COVID-19 pandemic because they are required to study from home. The real problem in this study was that students perceived stress as they had to study from home, especially the students who were in the final year. This can be illustrated in the situation of University Technology Mara UiTM provided a platform for UiTM students to express their problem regarding academic matters or any related problem. This platform was created using social medium, which are Facebook and Twitter, named UiTM Confession, which allows students to write their opinion and feeling during online learning, and those writing will be posted on the main page by admin. Based on the UiTM Confession platform, researchers found that there are many UiTM students expressing their feeling and problem due to perceived stress by online learning. This shows that students from UiTM perceive stress due to the academic workload as well as family problems. Among the problems that are mentioned by students was that they felt stressed as the lecturer gave a lot of assignments to be completed in a short time, as well as most of their lecturers did not understand that the student situation and problem during study from home. In addition, students also perceive stress due to the social group attachment, as there are difficulties in group work, slow internet, network, and thus parents also not supporting them in facing difficulties in study at home. Based on the latest report issued in UiTM Confession, students narrated their problems at home, such as financial difficulties, they will fight between siblings, had to prepare food for family members when the class was conducted, and had to share a laptop with other siblings during the class. Taken together, these results show that this study was conducted at Universiti Teknologi Mara Merbuk, Sungai Petani, Kedah, as students here also experience the same problem, which are perceived stress due to sudden changes in teaching and learning method. This can be evident through the several webinars that had been done during the semester for the student. The purpose of this webinar is to give motivation to the student in learning during COVID-19. What to do if the student feels stressed and challenges that student need to face when study from home or online distance learning. So, in this study, there are 5 research questions and 5 research objectives that will be discussed based on 3 independent variables and 1 dependent variable. There are 3 independent variables, which are academic workload, social group attachment, and fears of COVID-19 contagion. Dependent variable for this study is perceived stress. This table shows the research question and research objective that had been mentioned earlier.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Asyiqin Binti Muhammad Zamani, and let us continue with the underlying theory. The theory that has been adopted in this study is James Lynch's theory of emotion. Emotion, according to this view, are the bodily responses of the body to anything in the environment. This theory shows that an experience first creates psychological arousal, which is subsequently interpreted. This can be illustrated briefly by people can only sense emotion after the arousal has been interpreted. The James Lynch theory is a counterintuitive approach to the cause and effects of emotion and their manifestation, as it contradicts to conventional wisdom. Both scientists highlighted that autonomic activity and behaviors generated by external stimuli are what cause an emotion's experience, not the other way around. This theory had helped the researcher in illustrating the conceptual framework of this study. This figure shows the conceptual framework of this study. Now, we will moving on to the literature review. This study consists of 4 literature reviews, which the first one is perceived stress. According to Vasunila Shom et al. In 2013, perceived stress refers to an individual's feelings or ideas, as well as the extent to which they are stressed at any time. Next is academic workload. According to Rahim in 2016, heavy academic workloads can produce apprehensive and worried feelings, which can lead to stress if they last for a long time. The third literature review is social group attachment. According to France et al. In 2010, in a minimal group, a person will form a group bond without any contact or even knowing other members in their group. As a result, whether there is a ship of close contact with group members or not, one might feel a sense of belonging to the group to which he belongs. The last literature review is fears of COVID-19 contagion. According to Sundrasen et al. In 2020, this COVID-19 has been repeatedly considered as a potentially life-threatening virus and a lasting threat, especially on social media.
Move to the next slide, which is research method. This slide consists of 7 items. First is research design. The researcher using quantitative technique which helps as primary data. Next is data analysis. The researcher had utilized SPSS to run the data. Thirdly is sampling technique. In this study, researcher used purposive sampling technique. Fourthly is sample size. Sample size in this study is obtained 90 sample size among final year students in UiTM Merbuk, Sungai Petani, Kedah. Next is researcher using Google Form to collect the data. For the level of analysis, the researcher focused on the individual student that is currently enrolled their study in final year at UiTM Merbuk, Sungai Petani, Kedah. Last but not least is data measurement. This data measurement consists of 6 sections which contain part A until part F. Next is finding. This study consists of 5 findings based on 5 research questions. The first finding is to know the extent of perceived stress among final year students in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah. The finding indicates that majority of final year students in UiTM Merbuk shows the positive extent on the perceived stress. As we could see, the table mean score of the 5 item of the perceived stress among final year student in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah is more than 3.5. For the second finding based on second research question is to know the relationship between academic workload and perceived stress among final year students in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah. The result obtained that there is weak negative relationship between academic workload and perceived stress among final year students in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah. The finding implied that academic workload had a significant that student learning was not stopped during the COVID-19 pandemic. Instead, they continued to attend the numerous online courses on a regular basis. Next, we move to the third finding based on the third research question. The result for the third finding reveals that moderate positive relationship between social group attachment and perceived stress among final year students in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah. The finding implied that social group attachment had a significant that people feel separated from their classmates during the COVID-19 pandemic, causing stress and anxiety. The fourth finding based on fourth research question is to know the relationship between fears of COVID-19 contagion and perceived stress among final year students in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah. The results obtained that there is weak downhill relationship between the fears of COVID-19 contagion and perceived stress among final year students in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah. The finding implied that fears of COVID-19 contagion had a significant that being exposed to a potentially infectious environment causes people to become stressed.
The last research objective indicates that social group attachment has shown the highest beta value, which is 0.524, compared to academic workload and fears of COVID-19 contagion, which shows the lowest beta values, negative 0.127 and negative 0.124 respectively. This can be concluded that social group attachment is the most significant roles influence the perceived stress among final year students in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah. Now, let us discuss on the research implication of this study. The implication of this study is towards the perceived stress of final year students in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah. After completing this study, this will help to assist the awareness of students' perceived stress regarding on the roles that influence the perceived stress among final year students in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah. This study also can expose the society on the influence of perceived stress as well as being supportive for the sake of student psychological health. Besides, this study also hoped to enhance the knowledge and would further contribute to the body of knowledge as well as being functional source information to the future researcher. The primary restriction of this study is that it only comprises final year students from UiTM Merbuk in Sungai Petani, Kedah as respondents. Thus, students in their final year of study at UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah comprise diploma and degree students. So as a result, the study focuses on the final year students only, which are diploma students in semester 4 and 5 and degree students in semester 5 and 6. The second constraint of this study is that it was done in only one geographic area, namely UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah, which appropriately represent the total final year student population at UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah. So, all final year respondents in UiTM Merbuk Sungai Petani, Kedah were included in this study. This research will focus solely on diploma and bachelor's degree students in their final year. So as a result, research finding on the factors that influence perceived stress among final year students at UiTM Merbuk in Sungai Petani, Kedah have been limited. In order to address the first constraint, the researchers should include more type of respondents in future studies, taking into account age and other semester undertaking. Researchers can conduct a comparative analysis of several types of respondents. This is because the findings outcome may be differ depending on the student's age and semester. Furthermore, the second drawback is that it exclusively focuses on one geographical place. As a result, in order to overcome the limitation, the researchers should broaden their geographical scope to include additional higher educational institutions in Malaysia. As a result, having a large study region will aid the researcher in finding more responders who will not be limited in UiTM Merbuk only. In fact, each university has its own viewpoint on the question of factors that influence students' perceived stress, and it will, for example, assist the researcher in generating various conclusions from various respondents and from various universities. In conclusion, students may experience stress and have more or less health problems as a result of COVID-19 outbreak and variously strict measures to prevent the spread of the infection. In the midst of COVID-19 pandemic, this study aimed to investigate the model of academic workload, social group attachment and fears of COVID-19 contagion in relation to perceived stress among final year students at UiTM Merbuk, Sungai Petani, Kedah. The James Lange theory of emotion was used to illustrate the variables in this study. As a result, 3 variables are considered in this study, which is academic workload, social group attachment, and fears of COVID-19 contagion. There were 90 respondents who meet the study's criteria. All of them are final year students who agreed that study from home during COVID-19 can cause students perceived stress. In this study, the researchers used Google Form and distributed them to WhatsApp groups such as NRUiTM Kedah, Community NRUiTM Kedah, and UiTM Kedah social media accounts such as Facebook and Twitter. As a result, the study demonstrated that all of the factors in this study meet the study's objectives, as well as a positive association between these 3 variables and perceived stress among final year students at UiTM Merbuk in Sungai Petani, Kedah. After all, social group attachment was found to be one of the most significant factors influencing perceived stress among final year students at UiTM Merbuk in Sungai Petani, Kedah.